Hey, and it's Alison Marlowe here. Welcome to another Global Winning Women live chat. And I'm really super excited to be chatting to Victoria Player today, who really works with women entrepreneurs who are struggling to attract clients and create consistent cash flow. Now, that's a challenge that Victoria addresses so well, and I know there is such a big need out there for this. Now, I'm not sure exactly when it was that Victoria and myself, our paths first crossed, but Victoria and I have been kind of around this coaching mentoring industry for quite some time now, and as I was searching for the documents that my team had kindly prepared in preparation for this call, the first document that actually popped up on my laptop was a receipt from a 5-part teleclass that I attended of Victoria's, and that was back in August 2008, so we've known each other quite some time. Victoria's continued to inspire me along my journey, and one of the reasons I really wanted to chat with Victoria and to share this chat with you is because in my eyes she's the queen of up-leveling. Victoria is someone who has gone from struggling as a lone parent with a tiny newborn, facing the prospect of having to possibly live on benefits, to now running a location independent business, traveling the world and regularly making more money in 1 month than she did in an entire year. So it can be done, ladies. Victoria is a living example that you really can build your business in a way that supports your dream, your family, and your bank account. So, Victoria, are you there?
I am indeed, Alison. Hello, everybody. Hello, Alison. So nice to be here. I'm very excited.
Great stuff, and so am I. So was that a bit of shock, Victoria, to know that, we've kind of known each other since around 2008?
As you started to say that, I was flipping through my memory banks thinking, yes, when did we meet? And then you said that, and I thought, oh, my goodness, yes, of course, that was it. That is going back some, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I can't even tell you what the course was, but it was a 5-part telecourse. So, it's really interesting, to see how women who've got the tenacity and the commitment, and really have that staying power to stay in the game, where this can absolutely lead you. So what I would really love for you to do today is just to share with us initially just a little bit about how did you get started in business? I mean, was business always on your plan?
Not at all. I have had the most varied background. One thing I did know is that I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be good at something. And I was one of these people who went from job to job to job. And let me just tell you, the range of types of work I've done over the years has been phenomenal. I've done everything from having my own fashion design label. I worked in the hospitality industry.
Wow.
I worked in barristers' chambers on Fleet Street in London. And the last proper job I had was as a headhunter in the city in London. And I think what it was is I was trying to fit into the traditional image of success that society molds, lays out for us, and I just didn't fit in. I was trying to find my place in the world, and I remember when I left my headhunting job. Luckily, I had a fair bit of money behind me, and I didn't work for 6 months because I was so miserable. I was so unhappy because I knew I was meant for something. I just couldn't find that thing. And one day I stumbled across a book about coaching. I believe, as I recall, it was a Fiona Harold book. And the minute I read it, I thought, oh my God, that is it. I have found my thing. And very quickly I just jumped on the coaching thing, did a coaching qualification, and hey presto, before I knew it, I was in a business, shall we say.
Wow.
So that's how I got into being in business.
Oh my goodness me. And I really love to hear your background as well. One of the things that I just find such a commonality here is this whole thing about this trying to find where you fit in. It's almost like it's inbuilt in us, isn't it? But we don't seem to be able to find it, and we have to learn to create our own definition of success. And quite often that is, why we end up on this entrepreneurial path.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I've shared a little bit already about what it is that you do today. But is that how you actually started off in coaching? Because I'm really keen to really help our audience understand, that this whole journey of being in business. My thing very much that I talk about a lot is, it doesn't matter where you are at the moment. You're in the perfect place. We're constantly evolving. So I equate this also to being successful wherever you are. You're on the path. You're on track. You're absolutely. You may not be exactly where you want to be just yet, but you're actually on that journey. So just talk us through a little bit about your business journey today.
Absolutely, and my goodness, is it a journey? Over the years, it is. So I heard somewhere, I can't remember who said it or where this came from, but I heard someone say that the entrepreneurial path it's like putting yourself on the most intense self-development program, and my goodness, isn't it? Because who I've become is unrecognizable to who I was, and not in a bad way, it's all in a really great way. But it's definitely been a journey and a journey of evolution. And in fact, when I stepped out first onto the entrepreneurial path, I was a generalist life coach, and I was living in Brighton at the time, and I was running a monthly coaching group, which was a sort of satellite part of the coach training organization I'd done my training with. And I used to put on a speaker every month, and would get lots of continuous professional development and that type of thing. So I was really surrounded by a big community of other coaches, and what I saw across the board, and it was the same situation for a lot of people at networking events that I met. They all had this passion, this vocation in life, this thing that they really wanted to do. Yet a lot of people were really struggling to attract clients and actually make enough money to have their business support them full time. And to be honest, it was my story too. And I actually saw a lot of my coaching colleagues return to, full-time jobs that they really didn't want to be doing, and to be frank, giving up on their dream of running successful business. And I vowed that wasn't going to be me, because it had taken me so long to find the thing that I loved. I wasn't going to give it up that easily. So I made a sort of silent commitment to myself that I was going to do whatever it took, and I bought all the traditional marketing manuals and all the things about client attraction. And no matter what I read, nothing seemed to work. I was showing up at the networking events. I was doing all the things that they say you should do, but still wasn't seeing the results I was hoping for. And I struggled along for quite some time trying to figure it out for myself. And of course, back in 2007, there was, the internet was taking off, and, there was so much free stuff on the internet. I thought I can surely figure it out by piecing together all the different pieces I learned on the internet. But of course, that just sends you into more of a spiral, into information overload, because everybody's teaching different parts of different systems and nothing fits together. And I could never understand why I couldn't get it to work. And of course, that's why. And in the end, I was running out of money. It was all getting a bit touch and go. And I thought, you know what, Victoria, it is time to just sort this out, because you too will be returning to a job that you don't want to do. And I decided at that point that I was going to bite the bullet and go for it. And I mustered up some money, and I made the decision to go and work with a female mentor over in the States, which was a really big deal for me at the time, because I'd looked for some various trainings here in the UK, and they were all run by men. And this particular mentor that I came across, because she was a woman, I just resonated with her. So anyway, I went over to the States and learned how to market my business through the work I did with her, and came back to the UK and started to implement it and started to get results. And back then, I was doing teleseminars, which sounds perfectly commonplace now, but back then, very few people in the UK were actually utilizing a lot of the online marketing techniques and teleseminars and this type of thing. So it was quite a wow thing to be doing, and I was getting results with it. So the people I knew, the coaches and so on, was saying, oh my God, what is it you're doing? How are you doing that? And you're obviously getting results, so can you tell us how you're doing it? And this is how I morphed into being a marketing and business success coach. I literally combined my coaching skills with my newfound knowledge and experience of marketing and the results I was getting, and transformed into what I'm doing today. And obviously it's just evolved from there and grown from there, and I've just learned more and more and more about business and business success and marketing, and also what I hadn't realized is that the biggest game of business is about the mindset, because you can learn everything you need, all of the nuts and bolts how-to pieces, but if you haven't got the mindset piece at the back of it, you will sabotage your success every single time. So it really has been a journey of learning and growing and evolving from the inside out, for sure.
Wow. And, I think so many of our listeners are going to really resonate with this story, and they're going to be asking the big question in their minds right now. So, how did this happen? What was the defining moment for you? And I guess, it's really about what you've just said, combining and interweaving the mindset with the knowledge.
Yes, it has been that it has definitely been that. However, what I've seen in my own entrepreneurial journey and in the journey of my clients is there's usually a point where people draw the line in the sand, where, they're moving along and they're muddling through and they're learning and they are growing, but often you'll find that you take 2 steps forward and 10 steps back, and 2 steps forward and 10 steps back, and it's so frustrating. It can be such a, laborious process, and it takes time. And I think often people reach a point where everything shifts, where something in their mindset changes, and that's when their success, comes to fore. And for me, sometimes it's a chosen thing, sometimes it's an enforced situation. So for me, it was very much an enforced situation in that I'd been going along in my business for a number of years. I'd been doing okay, I'd been making some good money. However, I was working really hard. I was working a lot of hours because, I'm a single girl and I could put a lot of graft into my business, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was like my hobby. And the business model I was following at the time meant that I was putting in those hours. So my defining moment happened about, what would it be, just under 5 years ago, when I found myself pregnant and alone. My son's father disappeared. He washed his hands of us immediately, and we have never seen him. Well, we've seen him, but he just ignores us. But, he's never been present. He's never provided financial support or any type of support. So that was a big wake-up call for me, because I was coming up to my 40s and thought, well, it's now or never, Victoria. You've got to go through with this. It's not the way you would have chosen it. I always had a vision of falling in love and getting married and having children that way, not to do it in such a sort of gunshot way, as they say. And I'm the sort of girl where I make silk out of something less silky, shall we say. So, I'm always the optimist. And I thought, okay, Victoria, you can do this, you can do it. And I'm quite savvy. So all through my pregnancy, I really worked hard and I put a lot of money aside because I don't have much experience of children. But I knew I'd need a bit of a bit of financial cushion after my son was born. Yeah. And that's what I did. I worked like crazy, and then my son was born, and oh my goodness, I had no idea what it would be like to have a child. And those of you who have had a child will know that they are all consuming, and you're up all night, and of course, that was a bit of a shock to me because I thought it was all going to be just perfect. And within days of giving birth, I was working again because I was so in the fear. I was so afraid of just running out of money. And that's how it went for a while. I was working during nap times and way into the night because my business model at the time meant that I wasn't working in such a leveraged way. Excuse me. And it was very exhausting. Anyone who's had a baby will know that your brain goes to mush and nothing seems to, no thoughts thread together. And anyway, it went along this way for a while, and I wasn't really bringing in the money or the clients that I needed to really keep the level of income coming in that we needed. So this is when I was really started to feel the challenge of my situation. The money started to dwindle. The bills were coming in and going unpaid. And although it sounds rather like one of these melodramatic stories that you hear a lot of business owners talk about, I literally was that woman who was in the supermarket looking at their own range, the own brand beans, thinking, have I actually got the money to pay for them?
Gosh, Victoria.
It wasn't fun at all. In fact, I was desperately miserable and drowning in the situation. So that was that's what I was facing, a life of benefits on benefits. That's the way it was going for me, and that is something I never saw for my life. That wasn't anything I'd ever factored into the equation. And I decided at that point that was not going to be my story, and that I was going to do whatever it took, no matter how challenging my situation, I was going to step up and make it happen. And at that time, I really wanted to be a good role model for my son. I wanted to be able to give him opportunities in life, and I knew that living on £60 a week was not going to be able to do that. So I decided to go and work with a high-level mentor. I literally took every penny I had in the entire world and borrowed some money from my mother and sold some things and invested to work with this particular mentor. And I don't mind admitting that from that point on, everything shifted. And people have written to me. They've heard my story and calls like this and when I'm out speaking and so on. Mm-hmm. And they have written to me and said, so who did you work with? What did you learn that changed everything? And the truth is, yes, I got some great support, and yes, I learned some, a new way of running my business that was much more leveraged, that enabled me to take care of my son and work without having to work stupid hours. Mm-hmm. But the biggest shift for me was on the inside. Yeah. It's who I had to become in the process of making the decision to work with that mentor, because literally it took every ounce of my soul strength to make that decision. Because I remember she was in London. She's an American lady, and she happened to be over in London. And I paid to, I was traveling down to London to meet her. And I remember thinking, if something goes wrong whilst I'm in London, I'm really in the shit. Because I had literally taken every last penny I had. I probably had enough money for a sandwich. I was literally doing everything on a wing and a prayer. That's how much I wanted to experience change. And it proved to me that I can do anything. I absolutely can, and I can ride through any fear and just go for it. and it gave me faith in myself that I have the power to create my destiny, no matter how bad things seem. And that's when everything really changed for me. It gave me the empowerment to step up in every area of my life. So it wasn't so much about what somebody taught me, it's about who I became.
Who you became.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this story, because, you know, it is all too easy to give up in life, all sorts of things. You shared, you know, that when you were right at the very beginning of your journey, that you noticed then lots of people that had trained, lots of people that had trained as coaches alongside you, as your peers, had gone back to, you know, the corporate world, or, you know, back into employment in some form. But this story just really, really is absolutely amazing, because, you know, we all have this ability and I think it's so incredibly important that we share these stories, not in a way that we're saying, oh, poor Victoria, you know, but in such an empowering way. And I do believe that, you know, quite often it's when we hit the depths almost of despair that we actually find that real, true inner power that will pull us back up again. So it's an incredibly empowering story. So, you know, I would just love to say, if there's anybody on the call right now, maybe just going through a little bit of a tough time with their business, and they're actually contemplating, you know, do I carry on? What do I keep doing? You know, just listen to what Victoria's saying here. You know, this message about who you are becoming is so, who do you need to become, you know, is so incredibly important. And that, just to reiterate, you know, what you said, you know, that's where the magic happens. That's where the change really, really happens. I've got a couple of questions that I'd love to ask about, you know, this is such a big leap of faith. I'm not even too sure what my question is, Victoria, but, you know, I'm just thinking, I can only try and imagine what that must have been like for you, being at this event and literally thinking to yourself, my gosh, you know, if something happens at home, you know, how am I going to manage? You know, how am I going to get back there? I've literally got enough money for a sandwich just to get me going through today. So, you know, there must have been times on this journey where, well, I'm making an assumption, and maybe that's wrong of me, but just share with us, you know, have there been times where you've still continued to think, gosh, you know, do I just chuck it all in? Were there days like that?
All of the time, Alison.
Yeah, great.
And even to this day, there's times when I'm like, what am I doing? And like, maybe I should just go and get a job. And then inside there's that feeling, I know I could never do it. Because this, you know, it never goes away, those moments where you just think, oh, for goodness sakes, I'd just like to have the security of a 9-to-5 job, you know. But I know I would die if I had to do that. I would rather fly by the seat of my pants and experience some uncertainty sometimes and live fully in all of my passion and, you know, have the freedom to do what I want, when I want, how I want, with whom I want, than ever just rely upon a 9-to-5 and that certainty. You know, I think for me, I think it does come up all of the time. Ask me the question again.
No, the question that I would love to ask you, if you're willing to share with us, but you know, there's this inner knowing. How do you connect with that inner knowing, that part that absolutely knows, without a shadow of a doubt, that you are on the right track? How do you get back into connection with that part?
The inner knowing, for me, the inner knowing is always about being quiet and journaling and meditating. And really getting into reality about my situation, because we often run from our problems. We hide, we brush them under the carpet. And I think for me, it's allowing myself to experience often the challenge and the negative feelings associated to a situation. When you're in reality about what that situation is, you can then make well-informed decisions. Until we know where we are, truly, we can't see what the next step is. And the beauty of life is that when you totally get into reality about where you are, the next step always arises naturally.
Yeah.
It just does. And you'll never be given more than a few steps. If you just get into reality about where you are in your own mind and then sort of say, what's the next step? You'll be given it. The idea will come into your head and you may get the second step. You'll never get more than that. And the beauty of that is you never get into overwhelm, ever. So all I do is I just keep asking what's the next step and listen to what my intuition tells me. And I just go do it. All your stories come up, all of your excuses about what if the money's not there, what if that client doesn't pay in time, but I've got a bill with this, I've got to, I don't wait. I just disregard those stories. I just follow. In the taking of that next step, the thing I need comes in, but it can't come in until you step forward.
Great. That is just so amazing. And thank you so much for sharing that, because, these are the things that I think that we kind of have to be on this journey for quite some time before we are really embracing and appreciating, because society set us up to live in this very masculine-dominated world, and we've been taught very much about focusing and planning out there in the future, and what are our outcomes and our goals. And I think us women are really learning and beginning to really, really embrace now that there are other ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's getting in alignment with that, and I'm sure that is something that you also teach, your clients, and I would love for you to share a little bit later on, where people can connect with you, because there's so much magic in this conversation. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm sure people are going to want to learn more about your offering and the services that you have available to them. So, oh my goodness me, I suddenly feel as if I've gone a little bit off track here. I just feel really, really excited, because we do live in such an exciting time, don't we, where we are really able to create these lives that are on our own terms, that describe what success means to us. We don't have to fit into anybody else's box. But I think one of the key things here is about allowing ourselves to let that happen.
Yes. Do you know what, Alison? That is such a big topic for me, and I think a lot of women don't give themselves the permission to let it happen. And when they do, everything can just, bam, change overnight. Because when you give yourself permission to step into all that you desire in the way that you want and really express yourself fully, that is when magic, and it is like magic, that is definitely the word, I can't even describe it as anything other than magic, where it's like stepping into your calling, isn't it? And something magical happens and everything slots into place. And actually, I've got a great story about this. Every time I tell it, it still blows my mind, and it inspires me to take action again every time I tell it.
You are going to share, aren't you?
Oh, yes, period. I remember, when was it? It was at the end of 2012. There's always that period between Christmas and New Year where you're stuffed to death, you're sick of the Christmas TV, and it's often you're at home, nobody's working yet. And I remember sitting at home thinking, right, 2013, here we go. You know how we all do. And I thought, but this year I'm going to make it happen, because this is the year following all this big shifts with my son, and a few years following, sorry. And I thought, you know what, I'm really ready to go for it this year. I'm going to do what needs to be done. And part of it was looking at other women's businesses and lives and thinking, not feeling envious, but I was happy for their success, but I used to look longingly and think, I want that. I can have that. And it's because it was meant for me too. I always say to my clients, if you look longingly at someone else's life, it's because it's meant for you too, so go for it. And I realized I was experiencing that a lot in myself, so I decided to get my journal out between Christmas and New Year and really get clear on my big vision. And I thought, right, let's go mental with this. Let's just pull the stops out. Let's not think small. Let's just go for the big guns. Excuse me. And I wrote out what I wanted my dream life to look like in every single detail. It literally took me days. I kept coming back to it and, adding to it. And I really broke it down, into things like I want to have an au pair. I need to move to a bigger house so that I can accommodate the au pair. I want to send my son to private school. I want to drive, everything. And then I thought, right, let's get into reality about this. And I started to do research online, and thank goodness for the internet. Goodness knows what we did before it.
Yeah.
And I went through every single thing and looked at it and did my research and found out how much it would cost. And, of course, by doing that, other opportunities open up to you. You will suddenly see, and this is a little exercise that everyone can do here. It works like a dream. You will suddenly see that perhaps things that you thought were out of reach are much more easily obtainable than you first imagined, or much more affordable, or whatever. And in doing the research, you will suddenly think, oh, look, I could do it that way, or there's this or that. Anyway, this is what I did, and I literally put a bold money goal on my dream life, and I worked out that I would probably need to make £12,500 a month to live my dream. And I thought, right, let's see what we can do about this. I had no idea how to make that sort of money at the time. And I literally thought, okay, that's the reality. That's what I want. What's the first step? And I took the first step, then I took the next step and kept asking, what's the next step? What's the next step? Let me tell you, Alison, within 2 months, I'd made that figure.
Wow.
I'd never made that money in my life, up until, I'll probably made it in a year or whatever, but not in that amount of time. And since then, I've been able to do it ever since. And you know what the big shift was? It's because I was creating from a place of passion. I remember thinking, I'm going to just be me in my business, and I'm going to bring my whole personality to the table, and I'm only going to do the things I love in the way that I love, and look how it happened.
That's amazing. I've gone completely goosebumpy because I know, because we obviously are connected, and, I know that these dreams have all come true.
They have.
Goodness me.
They have. I wanted to travel. I wanted to work, run my business from overseas. I spent the whole summer in Thailand. I took on an au pair. I moved to a bigger house. I flew my au pair out to Thailand so she could take care of my son whilst I was working. Just everything that was on that list, that visioning list that I created between Christmas and New Year, it came to reality, and the money came with it. And I didn't go and learn anything new. I just took action on my dreams every single day by stepping forward, stepping forward, stepping forward. So it's possible for everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, because, wow, it's exactly as you say. Those possibilities aren't just out there for the selected few. They're there for all of us, absolutely all of us, if we choose to accept the mission, basically. I think that's just so phenomenal, and you're such a trailblazer. You absolutely are, and so gifted and so talented in being able to now share your learning with other entrepreneurial women. And I thank you as well for being part of my journey, on and off over the years as well. I think there's just something so powerful when entrepreneurial women can really share, be really honest and share our truth like this in such an open way, because it does inspire other people to take action. Just listening to this story now, it's flagging up little things for me that I've done in the past, and I'm like, do you know, Alison, well done, you know, and little things that I'd forgotten to sort of celebrate or congratulate myself on, and I'm sure there's other people listening on the call that will feel exactly the same, because we are all powerful, and I think this is something that we really, really need to remember.
Absolutely.
Oh, goodness me, you've shared some fabulous tips along the way. This has just been absolutely awesome, and I love that exercise, and I really do encourage everybody to absolutely make the time to, you know, to give that activity a go. You've got nothing to lose, and I think, you know, one of the biggest barriers is we're going to say we're too busy.
Yeah.
But we all have the same amount of time, and, you know, this is about valuing yourself. Absolutely about valuing yourself, just as Victoria did, you know, and she didn't do it all in one go. You took some time over this activity, didn't you? Kept coming back to it. You know, there is always a way. I think that's one of the biggest messages here, underlying messages. You know, it's about looking for the possibilities and finding the way that's right for you, and we don't have to compare ourselves to other people all the time. And you have created this amazing life, this amazing business that supports yourself, it supports your son, and you're getting to really live that dream life.
I am indeed.
You are.
Indeed,
and, you know,
yeah.
Victoria, this is just the beginning.
It is. That's my intention anyway. Onwards and upwards.
Yeah, and, you know, it will just be... This is why I get so inspired as well, because I think if you're doing this now, what are our children going to be able to accomplish?
Absolutely.
And the generation after that as well. You know?
Yeah.
And I think something very, very key that you talked about was this whole permission piece. And, you know, I think you and I could have probably done a whole call around permission if we thought of it. Maybe another time.
Yeah.
But this is, you know, this is about us breaking down the chains and really standing in our power at this time of evolution, and actually, you know, really making a stand for ourselves and saying, you know, this is how it's going to be, and it's not going to be like that anymore.
Yeah.
I feel very, very strongly about that. So I really, really thank you for sharing that. We need to find out more about you, though. Where are you hanging out these days? I mean, I know absolutely that you have a fabulous website, victoriaplayer.com. We will share the links as well, so not to worry about that. But where else can we find you? Where else are you hanging out these days?
I'm always on Facebook, as are most people. Yeah, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Victoria Player. I also have a community of women. I know you're in it, you're part of it as well, aren't you, Alison? Called the Inspired to Greatness Community. You know, it's a group on Facebook that where everyone's chatting away and sharing tips and, you know, just networking and the likes. But I also host, as part of that, I host a weekly show similar to what we're doing here now, actually, where I share lots of, you know, each week I speak about different business building topics and mindset pieces, and very much an extension of what we've shared here today. But actually, you know, we have talked a lot about experiencing breakthrough moments in your business, and a lot of that is about, yes, knowing about the business structures and the different marketing pieces and what to do to actually have that money coming in, but also about the mindset shifts. And I have actually put together a little checklist, because obviously we've only got a certain amount of time here on today's call, and I put together this checklist for the ladies listening in here today called 22 Empowered Ways to Create Big Income Breakthroughs This Month. Woo-hoo! So if everybody would like to get their hands on a copy of that, then they can head over to victoriaplayer.com/winningwomen.html. And if you just fill in the form there, you will receive the checklist, which will go into a lot more detail about some of the things we've spoken about today.
That is absolutely phenomenal, and such a great offer for women everywhere. Thank you so much for sharing that with our community. And
You're welcome.
I also believe very much that this is also one of the biggest ways forward for women. It's not about competition; it's about how we can serve and support each other along that journey. Victoria, you are such a superstar. You really, really are.
Oh, and bless you.
I just love the work that you're doing and the massive difference that you're making in the world by being you. How powerful is that? How amazing, What an awesome role model. And I really hope that you're incredibly proud of yourself, and I just want to reiterate. Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's something that I don't think women are that great at acknowledging. Oh, yeah, just that little thing, that I did, But it's big, it's important, and we need to acknowledge all these little steps. Victoria talks very much about just take the next step. Well, each of those little next steps needs to be celebrated because those little steps make up the big leap.
They do. Yeah. And that's the way forward. Every step, like you say, turns out to be a big shift, and every single one needs to be celebrated. That's a great thing about communities like yours and mine. It is about celebrating women and holding women up and supporting women to really be extraordinarily great in their life. And each of us has the potential to be that.
And I think you've just rounded the call up beautifully on that note. Oh, Victoria, I've had so much fun chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time. I know how incredibly busy you are, and thank you until we see each other again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. And to all the ladies listening in, I really appreciate you joining us. I look forward to getting to know everyone a bit better online someplace.
Lovely. Thank you, Victoria. Bye for now.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.